the better your data is and the better your collaboration with systems are between sales and marketing, you will actually see an exponential return.
All right, everybody, welcome to Event Marketing Redefined, our live show. Excited to have everybody. Looks like there's some new people. Looks like there's some familiar people. Excited to do this again. Today, I got with me, for those of you who don't know, Doug Foley, right? Entrepreneur, author, president, Giant Goat. Doug does a lot of things. Doug and I have longstanding relationship, friends, played college golf together. Excited to have Doug back, and we're going to do post-show follow-up. We did pre-show a couple weeks ago. Didn't even get to post show. I don't know why we were dumb enough to think we could do it all at once, but we've done dumber. But we're going post show follow up today. It's strategy, and then it's tactics, and then it's also leveraging AI. Doug, welcome back. Thanks for consistently spending time with us, my friend.
Oh, my favorite show to be on again and again. You can have anytime you ask. Happy to be here.
Awesome, dude. Appreciate it. And all right, let's get started. So I start off the last show same way. When we're talking pre-show, we're talking post-show, these types of executions with events, right? My major thought that I want to frame this with is essentially, with events, you are deploying capital, right? Lots of it. It's a lot of time. It's a lot of resource. So that means as we're folding into post-show follow-up today, what do we need to do, right? We need to improve conversion. We need to create pipeline. We need to move pipeline. We need to handle leads quickly. We need to build relationships and extend the event. So these are all the things that we're thinking about doing. And of course it matters because we're deploying a lot of money. We're deploying a lot of time. We're deploying a lot of resources. So today, like promised, strategy, tactics, and AI. And I think what Doug and I were talking about in the beginning when you all jumped on was this whole piece with AI. What we really want to do for everybody, and I think with AI for event marketers, is where we're trying to get event marketers, a lot of them is from coordinating and planning and the administrative work to have enough time to do the strategic work. But seems to me from always talking with event marketers that like the planning, the coordinating, the administrative side of things, it's cumbersome. There's a lot of it. You're overrun with it. And I think AI is a really good solution to say, okay, how can we help you get some of that stuff streamlined, processed, and done quicker so that you can create time for yourself to go work on the strategy parts. The other side is data. I think AI can really be useful for event marketers with data. Simple, quick example is taking surveys and processing them through AI to get the information out, but we'll get into those things. Okay, so I'm going to go through a list. I got about 7 to 10-ish style things that I think are like lead-offs to lead Doug and I into conversation. Doug has the ability to share his screen. He'll prompt things as we go. I will do my best because we're going to turn this into a podcast to talk while Doug does those things. So my first big one, and I know this from the work that we do with our customers, as well as working with people that have been on this show and having these conversations, also from running our live event and having a whole workshop on some of this, is the event department taking ownership on following up with sales. And it sucks. It sucks, but you have to do it. Conversation I had with somebody that's going to be on the podcast in a couple of weeks, great episode. And they actually hired a role in the event department to basically work hand in hand with sales. Right? So they're creating a role for this. That's how many leads and how many things are coming in and touch points that they have. So not everybody has that capability, but they are hiring a very specific role for that. I forget the name of the role. It's like event sales coordinator, but basically they're following up. These batch of leads were given to sales. What's the journey? What are the stage? Where are the conversions? Where are they at? Blah, blah, blah. Right? So that for me, Doug, is like one of the most major ones, is that at smaller companies, I think the event manager, event marketer has an easier time. You're just going to sales and you're able to do it. But the bigger the company gets, the harder it gets. But that's like my number one.
You know, I couldn't agree more. And it's funny, the harder the economic conditions are, the greater the reliance becomes on sales. So right now, if people are struggling, you see this in a number of industries, ag specifically, you know, they're hurting. If you looked at the VPs and the organizations, the first budget they cut is going to be marketing. It's not going to be sales.
Yeah.
Sales is typically last. So if you can learn, especially right now, how to be an advocate for sales or a partner to sales, you're going to be more successful. But with that comes challenges on, That's just another list of 20 things I'm going to have to do as an event marketer and event planner. And I think that's where I think we're going to go with a lot of the conversation is what can I do to make that relationship stronger? What tools can
Yeah.
I give them? How can I analyze data? How can I speed up their process and just adopt that partnership? Because that's where you're going to thrive.
Yeah, and I think it's just one of those things where sometimes, as an event marketer, you just have to do it. You just have to be the one that you either have an advocate or a partner in sales, and you have to go to them and say, "Hey, we dropped you 40 leads that were vetted, we graded them, right? Like, where are we at with them? How can I get a report? How can I do a follow-up?" Because I think not only are you pressing them to get to them and work with those leads and work through them, you also need to know for yourself what's happening after the event, right? What that conversation that you thought was so great, how has it really gone? Right? Like, is there movement? It'll help you understand, is this a brand new lead? Are we converting? Is it somebody that's been kind of sitting on the sideline, but then we turn them into a potential customer? Is it a deal that accelerated? These are things that you start to learn when you follow the trail, when you follow the cookie crumbs. The second one I have here is just a lead retrieval system, right? I can think of two out there right now. One is Captello, one is Mobley, that are really specific for trade shows and events. And I think some of the advantages here, personalization, lead grading, voice notes. You're able to do those three things, personalization, lead grading, and voice notes, very quickly on the fly in these softwares. You are also able to lead segment, right? So you're able to lead segment and understand, does this go to sales? Does this go to marketing? Does this go to a nurture sequence, right? And I think, Doug, with a lot of stuff that you've shared with like the Fibonacci sequence as an event marketer, using AI, you might be able to do some of this yourself without having it go to marketing. Maybe they don't want the lead or they don't have enough time or you struggle when you send it to them. Well, you might be able to propose that you can do it yourself. But I think that lead segmentation, where does it go, is super important. Yeah. I mean, lead retrieval system for me is number two and sort of those little nuances of how you use it.
I will tell you right now, if you're thinking about AI, and I know a lot of people here for that, the better your data is and the better your collaboration with systems are between sales and marketing, you will actually see an exponential return. I can guarantee if you have agreement before the show that, hey, post show, this is how we're going to handle leads, regardless of system. If you have an agreement on, hey, these are the expectations, but this is the system, and these are the automations we're going to run, you'll see exponential leads. And there is a decay from the moment you have an interaction with somebody and the time you have the next step, whether it's a phone call, whether it's a reply to an email. The further you get away, the less likely you are to close. So getting alignment right away, even just, hey, we're going to use this system. This is the expectation we have, or these are the tools we can use to make sure that the follow-up scheduled. You'll have a huge increase. It can be as simple as, hey, we're going to send out an email campaign with a booking link to Calendly, but we're going to use this system to capture the leads and qualify them. But then we're going to send this up so your meetings are booked within the first week after the show. I promise if all of you just adopted that in agreement there, you're going to see a double digit return from previous shows.
Doug, I think the my third one here is like speed to lead and same day follow up. And yeah, speed to lead, but I also think same day follow up is really big for me. Like in my heart, like I'm not a processor or an automator of things. It's just not my thing, right? I've had other people that are better than that. But for me, my thought is like I meet somebody at an event, I want that touch point right away. If I'm a salesperson and I work for, I don't know, a big software company or manufacturer and I'm on the show floor and you're Doug, a customer, and I meet you, I literally am going to find time to send you an email and say, "Hey Doug, it's Matt over, we met today. I work for X. I really enjoyed the conversation. I understand that, you're struggling and searching for A, B, and C, right? And hey, I'd love to connect. I have some ideas for you." Email, boom, right then and there. Because they may not respond and they're busy and they're at the conference, but they're going to read it. And now they've had Matt, conversation, got my email, reconnected the dots. I might send them a LinkedIn connection. How in nowadays, how can AI help speed that up? Whether it's advice for an event marketer or for a sales team, having emails scripted. I mean, what can be done there? Because I think speed to lead is so important.
Honestly, if this is probably the secret weapon we use it for at trade shows. So we'll teach entire sales team how to use AI. And it can literally just write that follow-up email for you. And if you want, I can show you. But the problem most people have is they sit down, they got their 12 business cards or like their little lead list. It's like,
Mhm.
oh man, it's going to take me 5, 10 minutes. I need an hour and a half to do this. But we teach them how to use voice on AI to write an email. If you want, do you want me to hop in
Wow.
and just show like an example? Okay.
Absolutely. You know, I love when we do this.
All
Yeah.
right. Let
My
me
favorite.
just,
Fire in there and do it. And I
okay.
think also, oh, go ahead, get started.
No, you're good. Go ahead. I'll just do it on my phone and then I'll flip over and show you the result on the
Yeah.
screen.
I was going to say, even I know right now there are systems. I don't know here, we're going to do a show about this lately, but like Six Sense has a what they call a conversational email tool that goes along with it, right? Where they're able to take it's really if you have a very high volume of leads. Like if you're trying to run through hundreds and hundreds or even thousands of leads per se, it is basically AI with scripted emails that goes out and then reads these emails and sends out calls to action and does everything for you and kind of filters to the point of getting to conversation because just getting the touch point out there fast is really what matters, right? It doesn't need to be overly personalized, although in my perfect world, I would love if it was, right? But I think that speed to lead is so important and making sure it's being done.
You guys can see
All
this
right.
okay? This loaded?
Yeah.
Okay.
I see. We should be good to go. Yeah. So you have
So
ChatGPT pulled up here.
yeah, downloading this app, single best thing you can do. And this is why. And I get to give you this example. I don't think its audio will come back, so I'll show a simple example. But hey, I just met Matt Kleinrock at our trade show booth for Rockway exhibits. We had a great conversation about how important it is to create event experiences. Awesome chat. I want to pitch them on a go-to-market strategy, but I want to send just a real casual email to them. Can you help me draft that email? Make it really really casual. Hey, great to meet you. Give them something notable out of our conversation and say, hey, I'm looking forward. I know you're busy at this event. You told me about the dinner plans. I hope you enjoy the steak at Mirage. Looking forward to connecting next week.
Love that. So that's a voice note that you're putting into ChatGPT
Exactly.
right
42
now. Got it.
seconds,
Okay.
right? Now,
Took you 42 seconds and everybody can do a voice note.
correct.
That's
So
straight into ChatGPT. Got it.
all
I'm
I'm
with
gonna
you.
do, hit send.
So now it's going through ChatGPT. So very quickly, this thing's writing an email subject. Great meeting you at the booth. Subject of the email. Hey, Matt, really great meeting you at the show. I enjoyed our convo around how important it is to actually create experiences at events instead of just showing up. Totally agree that it's a game changer. I know you're slammed this week with everything going on, but I hope you get a chance to enjoy that steak at Mirage. Sounded like a solid plan. Wow. Would love to connect next week and jam on a go to market strategy idea. I think that you'll dig. Talk soon. I mean, that literally. So, what I love about this example, Doug, and it worked beautifully, is essentially you are a salesperson or you are a marketer or you are somebody that is on the show floor with your team. Everybody can have ChatGPT on their phone. You meet somebody very quickly. You pull the phone out. I mean, right then and there. I mean, I do this all day with Ish. It probably drives her crazy, but I just send her voice notes all day. It takes 2 seconds. You don't have to write. You don't have to have a pull a laptop. You don't have to nothing. It's straight from the brain into ChatGPT, and it crafts you an email that you can send them. That's fantastic.
And I will tell you that, like, just that fundamental learning of knowing to use voice notes. And if you have a Mac, you can do this on desktop too. You don't have to use your phone. I just have it with me. I'm in the habit. That simple discipline of learning how to speak to it, it's the prompt killer. You don't
Yeah.
have to worry about architecting a perfect prompt because if you are clear in your instructions, it will give you the output you're looking for pretty quick. And it's faster than typing. To
I
write
love
a
that.
proper prompt is usually a couple hundred words to 500 words. And that's what's not efficient if it's, might as well just type the email. Well, cool. Now just speak it. It'll create it for you and you're good to go.
And I think this is great advice for anybody that just goes to events in general, right? And not even just follow up, but like if you're an attendee, if you're going to meet somebody, if you're networking, you want to send an email, right? If you're in sales of any kind and you're just there, is like you just send it in there and have the email written for yourself. And now it's ready to go. And if you have some time, you save the email, you have a little bit of time, you send it when you're eating your lunch or something. And then, you have all these discussions. And then at the end of the day, you go into ChatGPT, it has these 15 emails you want to send, you go, boom, you send them and you're done.
Yep.
It's
And
fantastic.
if you have this and thought about it a little bit more advanced, we could have developed a template, said, hey,
Mhm.
follow this template. Now we're going to apply it to Matt, who's doing this at this company. I can just talk through nuances and it'll grab the template, output it based on you, and you're good to go. Real
So,
simple. But
Doug, just walking through this, because I think that was a really great example of how to speed somebody up at an event, right? So, let's say proactively, you know, you're going to this event. I'm an event marketer. I have a trade show coming up. I have a sales team coming in. Could I proactively like write one of these or like prompt and script it and then give it to my sales team or give it to an admin on the floor and basically go to sales and say, hey, when you're done with an interaction, just go to this person and give them the information? Like, could you, if you were proactively thinking that you were going to do this, could you have it all prepared?
short answer is yes. And
Huh?
it depends. Absolutely. Best thing you can do is have these scripted out. And you know what? That's a great reason to be reaching out to a sales leader and said, hey, we're working on some
Yeah.
AI tools. It's going to make trade shows easier. I need to sit down and get some templates. Great interaction, great way to get them engaged
Yeah.
earlier. Solves problem number one. Number two, there's a couple ways to do it. So you mentioned Sixth Sense, they have their conversational tools.
Yep.
They're going to pre-build them into that workflow. Intermediary step, just pre-build the templates and text them to them. If you want to go a step further, and this is probably what I would say 80% of people should do, build a custom GPT with the things that you know are repeatable tasks for that show. And all you have to do is send your sales team a link and say, hey, go grab this tool. We built it for you. If you have a sales follow-up, you can just talk to it. And then a quick training, they're good to go. That
Who would
way,
build a tool like that? Like what would a person do if they were like, "Hey, I do have these three or four different things that are repeatedly happening on the show floor or for an event. How do you have one of those things built? What are you asking for? What should somebody ask for?" Because I don't think it's that expensive from my recollection of talking about this.
no, like well, they're free to build as long as you have a pro subscription to
Hmm.
open or chat GPT. You can build them
Hmm.
free. Your teammates would have to have a subscription to access them, but all you need is the templates. So let's say I have an email template for like a pre-show email template, a post-show email
Hmm.
template, and maybe like a text template that I'm going to use to
Sure.
send
Yeah.
people to
Text,
an
hey,
event.
just met you
Three
today.
things.
Thanks for coming by. Yep.
Yeah, three
Yep.
things. So we're going to load those into Chat GPT and build a custom GPT and say, hey, your role is to create
Mm.
three different things so people can ask you. And if you ever seen the shortcuts, they can click one of three buttons, and then all they have to do is speak and say, "Hey, yeah, I met Matt at Exhibitor Live. We're going to go to marketing. He happens to be going to steak," and it'll auto populate. Think of it as the old
Wow.
school way of doing mail merge.
Yeah.
It just does it with your context and your tone. So real easy. So sorry, just looking at the question.
Yeah. Mark asked a question. It
Yeah,
says,
here,
so can you
let's
go from ChatGPT to lead retrieval contact info?
yeah, here, let's do this real quick.
You want to share your screen again?
Yeah, let me.
You could do whatever you'd like, Doug. Your first demonstration was bar set high.
Okay, I'm pulling. This is the desktop app just to
Okay.
give you.
The reference, yep.
Yeah, it's so real funny just to show you how often I use this. So in preparation, Matt and I were on the phone, I think 10 minutes before. I had it create a demo list for me of people with SaaS. So just so we could do this, but even if you just want to use samples and stuff. So we're going to use this same thing. I'm just okay, this is great. Now create a template.
This is you
And
talking, writing at the
yeah,
ChatGPT.
I'm just writing it this time.
Yep.
You guys can see this, right?
Yep. Yeah, we can see it. You're writing in on the back of the email that you voice noted in for it to write you an email for quick follow-up. You're now saying, this is great. Now create a template and help create a list using the attached. And then parentheses, you wrote start with the first five. So you're attaching a list. And I think these are a list of companies, correct?
Yep. So we just create a
Okay.
lead list.
It could be leads. Yeah. There's a bunch of
Yep.
leads that you have. You got 100 leads. So now it's populating and essentially doing what it does. Oh, no, no, you're still writing. Sorry. And then you're actually putting in the depth of the detail to say, if you don't know the restaurant, make an assumption of general dinner plans. Because in the email that it wrote previously, it did mention them going to get a steak at the Mirage. Got it. Okay.
So now here is one of the things, and this is why that pre-show planning you do with sales, it's really important. And that's why I mentioned AI is only as good as the data we can put into it. So right now, like we have a list that's pretty generic, but if during the day, like I'm taking these notes and I know, hey, so-and-so is going to see Celine Dion, of course, Canadian,
Yeah.
a Canadian singer. Like that's, we're going to be able to add context to this follow-up so it doesn't look generic. It doesn't look automated.
Yeah.
But see, now it's already populating from the first three,
Well,
four.
so this is basically, so just so everybody knows, who can't see, Essentially, it's taking the email that was written as a follow up. Doug entered in a whole bunch of contacts as if you were at a trade show and you had a list of 80 leads with contacts, and it's rewriting this email for every single person that's inside that lead list.
And the cool part, like if you noticed, it's changing them subtly. Really great meeting you. Awesome chatting with you. Really enjoyed our convo.
Yeah.
Great chatting at the show. Like it's gonna change it so not everything's gonna be the same. Now, you don't have to be a great email marketer, but when you do this and you're doing mass email, this context now, like being able to download these, is going to help with deliverability because it doesn't look like you're sending the exact same thing
Yeah.
600 times. It's all contextually unique. So your
It's
deliverability goes
rescripting.
up.
It basically rescripting one follow up email that you wrote from a voice note into a whole bunch of different ones for individual leads,
Yep.
essentially. With
Yep.
and it literally did it in 30 seconds.
Correct. You
So just
saw this. Like,
imagine the work that would go into this. And even, I mean, even if you're just like if you're a one man, one woman band and you're going through this, you can have that written for you in 30 seconds. And then maybe you take 10 minutes to run through it and edit some stuff up. It would take you hours to get that done, right?
100%.
It would take hours to do that. So it's like such a way of speeding up. All right, let's go my next thing here because I think there's a possibility here as well to tie into the conversation of utilizing a lead retrieval system and using AI. My fourth year I have is I always say set meetings during the meeting or during the show for after. This to me should be a KPI for almost everybody as long as it aligns with their goals. Is you should be giving to your team on the floor and everybody there to say, hey, over these next 3 days, we want to set 25 meetings. We need 25 actual meetings booked for after the show, which basically means we've talked, we've demoed, we've communicated, they've gone through an experience, we've had an interaction, and now we're going to set up the next steps. That to me is a huge one that I don't know if enough people sort of deploy at their events.
So this particular one, if you're not using a calendar booking tool, HubSpot's got them integrated. I think, if you're enterprise, a lot have it. Salesforce has it now. Calendly is a good one. It's paid. They have some free options. And then the tool we use most often is Go High Level. They have their integrated, but there's so many tools. And actually, if you're in Gmail, Google has their own calendar link now. That should be something you always put in your email signature. Really simple thing. If you want to start winning and making that process easier, get your salespeople, if they're on G Suite, get them to put their calendar link in the bottom. Microsoft has similar tools. I'm not as familiar. Making a booking link accessible is really simple. But same list that I just did, we can create a simple follow-up thing. It's like, hey, can you embed my Calendly link and send just a casual follow-up booking? And just make sure at the bottom said, or if you want to send me your booking link, I'd be happy to work with you or your receptionist. Something real simple. Like,
Geez, you could do it. I mean, I'm just thinking, like, just out loud, because I think a lot of times on the show floor, in like one-on-one interactions and these meaningful discussions that you can then try to accelerate, right? And I think you can do that in book meetings, but also you have some very large companies obviously that are exhibiting. There's a lot of traffic, there's a lot of people, there's a lot of technically leads that are being scanned and people that are checking in and out for meetings, for engagements, for experiences, demonstrations, whatever it may be. Doing something like this would be a great tool of sending it out quickly and as a follow-up to say, do you want to book a meeting? Right? Like, so if you're going to meet with 1,000 people and you send it out to 1,000 people, how many of that 1,000 is going to book a meeting? Right? Will they use the link and be like, wow, that was a great experience. I would love to talk to them next week. Hey, here's the calendar for next week. Thanks for stopping by X booth. This is Matt from wherever. Appreciate you coming by. Really enjoyed having you. Here's a link. I would love to set up an appointment next week.
there is one thing we've done, and it's probably one of our most effective follow-up messages. It's either the fake follow or the fake re-reply. So if you have
Mm.
sent this, let's say it hasn't delivered. So we've gone through, we
Mhm.
have those 5 examples. If we want to follow up with that email, but we want to include that body, it's really powerful to put in the body copy because sometimes they just miss it. They got buried in travel.
Yeah.
So let me see if I can talk through this and give you the example.
All right, walk us through what you're doing while you're doing it too.
I want you to use those 5 emails above, and we're going to do a reply email. I need you to copy the subject below. And in the subject, make sure it says RE semicolon, great meeting you with you at the booth, or whatever was in the existing email. So make it look like we are replying to our own email. And in the body of this email, I want you to include details about it was really great. I want to take this opportunity to provide my calendar link to make it easy for you to book a meeting. Alternatively, if you have a calendar link or you have a receptionist or someone that supports your calendar, I'm happy to work with them to get the meeting booked. I just want to make sure we connect while the ideas are fresh. Okay.
Okay, so just so everybody listening, that is a voice message that Doug entered into ChatGPT, which is which is on the back of the emails that we've been writing here for follow-up. And Doug is giving it instruction to basically create further replied follow-up here.
Yep. And I'm just giving it
a
my
Calendly
calendar
link.
Yep.
Yeah, sorry, which is on the back again of me saying I like to be able to say, how can we book meetings the day of for the future? So if I'm at the show, how do I do it?
So it's just going to explain what it is. And what you're going to notice in the subject line, it added the RE, which is reply or regarding, which is somebody's going back and forth.
Yeah.
Again, that's not meant to circumvent spam, but it has a higher delivery rate. So this is just a template we know works. Okay.
This is good.
It's embedded it there.
It's writing multiple emails for all the different. Again, if you remember going backwards, we added in a list of leads. So it's writing an email for every single one of these as a response. Let me read one of these, Doug, just as go up to one of the first ones, maybe. I don't know, whichever one you think.
There's a good specific one, Deborah.
Yeah, so it says, "Hey Deborah, really appreciated your insights on cloud migration. You've got a great lens on this. Just looping back here to drop my calendar link to find time next week. Has a hand arrow, Calendly link. If you'd rather pass this off to someone on your team to coordinate, no problem at all. Happy to go through whoever makes it easiest. Excited to connect." So it's just an email. It's writing this for you. It's giving you a Calendly link. It's all on the back of what we're talking about of like, how do you book meetings at the conference, at the meeting now, not let's wait a couple days, get back, filter the leads, get to sales. It's like to me, the impressions, the face-to-face time, knowing someone's name, seeing stuff from them over and over, I think makes so much sense when it comes to events. So if you do meet somebody, speed to lead, sending them emails, getting them a Calendly link, all this stuff is allowing you to do it, build templates for your team.
Your speed to lead, like anything you can do to accelerate a sales cycle means revenues being generated faster. That's where businesses thrive. And honestly, that's how salespeople are paid. So if you can help them make commissions faster, having a KPI associated with that, like time to first meeting or something meaningful, that's going to be a metric that both sales and marketing leadership are going to be like, hey, we implemented this new strategy. We took a quarter off of what it takes to close because of this. That's huge. That means revenue in the same fiscal year. If you're a publicly traded company, that timing is massive, because more often than not, leads take greater than 9 months, which means you're going to miss the fiscal year. So the results to them may not matter. So if you're publicly traded, this time to lead and speed to lead thing is super vital for you to master. And these are steps that help.
I love it. This is great stuff, Doug. All right, I'm going to keep going down kind of my list. One of the next things when it comes to follow-up to me post-show that's important is Doug and I talked in our show a couple weeks ago when we talked about pre-show about generating an offer. You need an offer. That offer we think has to be creative. It has to be relative. It has to have value. So I think you need to leverage your offer for follow-up. So like some really simple examples is like a giveaway, a meaningful contest, different things that you can follow up that people are going to want, that they're not annoyed by the follow-up, right? They're almost expecting the follow-up. So a good example, I think, where we did this at Rockway really well was we exhibited ourselves. And we were talking to ourselves about like, okay, like how are we going to follow up with these people where we're not just hounding them, asking them for business, right? Like, how can we build relationship, do something valuable for them? And one of the ideas we had was we were running our podcast, this podcast, in the booth at the show. So we thought, okay, we're videoing it, we're recording it. So say we had somebody came and sat in, which again is an engagement tactic, the podcast. They sit in the booth, we have a conversation. Well, we were following up with them a couple days later as one of our key follow-ups with, hey, thanks for sitting with us. Here's a really great clip of you. on the podcast talking about A, B, and C. We had a really great conversation. So you're giving them something of value and you're following up based on the conversation you have. I think it makes it easier to say, we had a little bit of a talk how you're having some issues with, experiential engagement. Do you want to set something up next week to sit and talk? It's just an easier follow up. You're leveraging your offer. You're leveraging by giving value rather than just following up to ask. And I think that's something that everybody should be considering when they are thinking about their engagements, their offers, and their giveaways.
I think that's huge. And one of the tools, and this is where I think a lot of people don't use AI enough for research. And if you haven't, I would go play with Grok and say, hey, like I need help researching this. I'm going to a trade show and I want to create a meaningful follow-up that's more than giving away an iPad or, some
So
trinkets.
Grok, give people some info on Grok because I think some of the segmentation with AI, where some are better at certain things than others, and I think Grok for research, we could probably do a whole nother discussion on it. But just walk for anybody that wouldn't be familiar with it. Walk
So
them through it.
yeah, that's one thing. And I'll show an example. I ran the example in chat, but Grok, if you're not familiar, that is X or formerly Twitter's AI platform. It's very good at accessing current information and doing research. There's a little icon that says deep research. You can click that. It'll allow you to go deeper into the web and pull out information. Chat GPT on paid plans also has deep research. But to what Matt was going through with, like, how do I come up with a meaningful or a really good thought-provoking follow-up that's not just either garbage at the event that they give away to their kids or something else? Jerry, your question, Grok better than Perplexity? Depending on the subject matter, so far, Grok has been better and more accurate. It removes bias. Perplexity seems to have an inherent bias. So does ChatGPT. Grok will just give you facts, cites articles. Perplexity's initial intent, for those who are not familiar, Perplexity was one of the first AI tools that allowed you to access the internet and do research and make follow-up questions. It was based more on like educational models. So both are good. So far, I've found faster, more reliable information in Grok if you're doing research. So if you want to validate something. But here is just an example using chat on, I asked it the question and I clicked. You see where it says search right here. I can use the web. If I want to go into deep research, I can click that and say go deeper. This will take 2 to 3 minutes.
Jerry.
So,
So just walk us through what you're doing here, because I think there's a couple pieces. One, there was a comment by Michelle that I want to get to, and then
yep.
the other is I think Grok with the research. Like, could people use Grok for like researching shows and industries and say, hey, I'm in the chemical X industry, right? Like, what are some trade shows that I should be at that these people would be there? Like, can people do that for their portfolio? Because a lot of times we get a lot of clients asking questions of what shows should they go to? Are there shows we're missing out on? And I think if you have your audience demographic down really pat, you could probably have it research some trade shows and conferences and events for you.
Yep. Let me just switch screens. We'll do it live.
All right, cool. Let's do it. And then while you do that, I'm going to get to what Michelle said because I think it's interesting because I mentioned about leveraging the offer as a follow-up tool and driving value to your audience. And Michelle said, if they attend my education sessions, I follow up with key highlights and actionable tools for them to use. I love that. And then she also said, I also include a survey link to access the complete education sessions if they fill it out. But now I'm thinking about including the calendar link to also book meetings and keep the conversation going. Yes, Michelle, 100%. I think like you're bringing somebody value. You're saying like, hey, thanks for coming, right? It's a touch point. And then it's like, here's some key points. I want to make sure everybody took this from what we talked about. And I'm big on this like authenticity piece of what you're doing because people can sense it. So it's like, put your best stuff in there, right? If you're really trying to help people, if you're really trying to help them develop themselves or whatever it is that you're teaching, right? Like the better those notes are and the better that piece is, the more value that's driven to them. And then at the bottom, nothing wrong with putting your calendar link or something and saying, hey, if there's anything here that I can help you with further, or, I love another option is like describing to how you've helped others. We've helped others with A, B, and C. If this is something you need help with, set up a meeting. I think that's a great way on follow-up, right? When you're converting and you're kind of using your offer or what you're working on them with. All right, go ahead, Doug. What are you
No,
doing
it's
here?
fun to
You're
watch. Yeah.
in
This
you're
is
in Grok.
Grok. Yep. So
Okay,
you can
so
go to
walk us through
x.com
this.
or you can just search Grok. All I did, again, like really simple. What trade show should be going to find leads? This is my company, Student for Rockway. It's
And you put
already,
you put my company in there.
yep, it's already gone through 81 different web pages.
Wow.
So if you think about it, and this
What's it
generally,
what's it saying? Where should we go?
we'll find, yeah, we'll find out shortly. You better have a big budget because I mean, you're
Yeah,
going around the globe.
apparently. That's awesome.
One of the things, and this, like, if you can take one thing away from today, I want everybody to think AI first. Like, if I have to do something that's a monotonous task that's going to require a lot of keystrokes, AI can probably solve the majority of those problems. So if you have to sit there and type something or go search like through multiple sites and do like a Google search, it has essentially replaced Google. Like, if you thought, oh, I got to click through 81 pages, first of all, I can't remember the last time I clicked to the second page of a search result, like on Google. So for the most part, that's done. And here's the
Wow.
recommendations for you now.
I mean, yeah, so this is deep research. All right, so just give us an overview here. Reread the question that you asked Grok, and then give us the overview of what it put together, because it put it together in about 60 seconds.
Yeah. What trade shows should I be going to find leads? This is my company. The reason I was intentionally vague is I wanted people to understand how Grok works, and it's also now how chat works. It's first going to look at what do you do? Like, I'm going to look at your website and kind of figure out, okay, I know what your company does. So if you're, and I know your site, that's why I use your example. You guys did a great job of explaining what you do. So on the left, you'll see like first thing, it looked at what I was doing. It looked at trade show options, confirmed it, and then put the recommendations together. So it went through and essentially did a web search. It did research for me. It figured out, okay, I know what you do. Where would I look for this? And then once I know where to look, who's having an event, and it then just summarizes the information. So you can do quick cursive research to figure out like, hey, here's a general direction I should probably consider, and then it gives you details. It gives
Doug,
you
everybody
links.
everybody wants to ask Grok why it didn't consider Exhibitor Live. I could tell you why it didn't, but go ahead. I don't know
Okay.
why.
One thing you too, if you get stuck in deep search, it spends more time. It's longer. If I didn't have
Yeah.
deep search, I'd have answers in seconds.
This is interesting. I mean, I think look, it's something that needs to be played with, right? But in terms of I like your comment just prior to this, which is essentially saying that when you have something that's like a mundane task, administrative, you mentioned a lot of keystrokes, right? Different things like that. Your first thought should be, how can I use AI? Like, how can I do something that takes me 30 minutes to 2 hours and do it in five?
The greatest advantage is its ability to produce outputs like text. So if I can talk to it, it can just type faster than me. I will never type faster than it. And like it's the same with code.
Says it seems likely that I overlooked Exhibitor Live in my initial recommendations for trade shows for Rockaway exhibits to find leads. Research suggests Exhibitor Live is a premier event for trade show.
Yeah, it occurred earlier in the year.
Yeah, it just happened. It was
It
like
just passed. We missed it.
a week ago.
Basically. Yeah.
Oh no, Cody and Molly were there. So yeah,
There you go. Yeah, I think the biggest
nice. It's awesome.
efficiency is more, it's not just, I could show all sorts of cool prompts and hacks and how we get the most
Yeah,
out of it, but a lot of it comes down to behavior change. How can you just
yeah.
start to ingrain it in your everyday process and realize, oh, instead of sending an email, I can leverage that. Now, I'll caveat that with whatever data sensitivity or tech policies you have, but anything that reduces keystrokes, you're going to win. So it
Dude,
could,
I've been doing it in my personal life. Honestly, it's on my phone. Like, we were going up to Ellijay in Georgia, and I wrote in the phone like, "Hey, I'm a family. I have these many kids. These are their ages. My wife and I, we're taking them up to Ellijay for 5 days. What is there to do?" And I was specific about their ages. I mean, it carved out like it showed me like a pinball arcade thing that was there that we could go do. Like it was amazing. I mean, it just told you exactly what you wanted. So I'm thinking that way more and more just in my personal life. And I think it's the same thing that you're saying here of how do you use it for the tasks that you're doing at work.
yeah. And the guy run a private equity firm, and we get as far as it having analyzed financial documents and
Yes.
telling us, is this a valid company we should even investigate and go down the path of doing formal due diligence on? And it's ingesting 50 to 70 Excel spreadsheets, PDFs, and like it spits out pretty accurate numbers in terms of, hey, this company's valued at this. And
Yep.
then we have it analyze the legal contracts. Like it can push some pretty crazy boundaries, but it took me 9 months to get it there. I think most
Yeah.
people, if you can start there, it's very much like you. I had a parent yell at me. So I coached my son's baseball team. He's like, "You guys don't have a practice plan." I was like, yeah, we do. And I just like look, type
Put
real
it
quick. I'm like, here's what it is for today. So yeah, if you can start, and it was funny. I was speaking at a conference and there's an agency that they bought licenses for all of their people. And they said, listen, don't even use it for work. Just start using it in your like your personal life to get used to the
Yeah.
habit of seeing what it can do. And then that starts to parlay back and realize, okay, you know what? I could actually do it to solve these problems at work. Just get in the habit of using it. I think you'd be
And I
pretty well
find, like you
rewarded.
said, the more specific information you put in, the better that you're going to get out, right? So it's like, even
Yep.
if you're, say, hey, I'm going to Orlando with my family, my kids are this age, and say you want to be at a really like luxurious hotel, like expensive, high-end, luxurious hotel, but you also want it to be really good for kids. You could be like, hey, what are the most luxurious, nicest, high-end hotels, but that are also really good for kids and that have options for A, B, and C. And oh yeah, by the way, we want to play golf and we need a golf course. Like, you just throw all those in there and it just spits it out at you. So the more info, the better. And I think it's the same thing as you're working on this. We got about 15 minutes here or so, but let's get into, I think, one of the last things I have when it comes to post-show follow-up that we talked about when I had John Wolf and Joe Fetterbush on. They talked a lot about the surveys that they were doing and the data that they were collecting, which then gets run, you would then run through in ChatGPT. And one of my thoughts is, I really love a survey question, call it in booth at the time that a person is there. But I think, like, we were joking the other day talking, I forget who I was talking to, but we were talking about just having that stand that has the happy face and the sad face and people hitting on their way out. And I think that's okay. But what I would do as a suggestion for everybody, if you want to get customer sentiment on something and you are there to understand, do they understand the problem you solve, right? Do they understand your product or service? Like, do they get what you're trying to tell them, the message that you want them to know about your company? I would have like a couple stands with a graphic that has a question on it and then with a yes or no button. Simple. And then you're running a survey that way. And then you're getting the information that you want out of them. And then you can run that information through through ChatGPT to understand what is the sentiment of the company, or if people have time to fill stuff out. I just think it's a very important thing. And I think the more specific of a question you ask on site, and whether you get a happy face, sad face, or people actually fill something out, I think it's really good information to get.
We just did a huge sentiment study because a lot of research can be biased pretty quickly. You can take any chart and bias the information one way or the other. We interviewed 80 salespeople. So if you, I know you guys did a podcast at one of the shows, right?
Yeah, Exhibitor
Like,
Live. Yeah, we just did it. Cody and Molly did, like, I call it woman on the street podcasting. Yeah.
so here's a really great way. If they were to take all the recordings from women on the
Yep.
street, you can have chat process the transcript and get true unbiased sentiment analysis done. It is the single most effective way to take bias out of research
Mm.
because when somebody's talking or explaining something to you, it'll remove their bias. But if you give me like A, B, C, or D, or like, hey, pick this option, I'll be biased by how the question was asked.
Yeah, sure.
So if you have something like a podcast, like that feedback, like you're going to get rich information and you say, hey, how many people did you interview? Like 10, 12,
18.
18. See, 18 people, you can literally run those 18 people through and you're going to have this really contextually rich database of like, tell me their perception of exhibiting or what this show was
Hmm.
like, or, and you're going to get really rich information that like that's data that
Yeah.
spreadsheets cannot process.
Yeah.
And
It's
that's a
true.
huge like gap. The study we did actually became the go-to-market for $1 billion company.
Oh, wow.
And it
That's
was
awesome.
all because of AI. But that's
Yeah.
like, if you want it to process information, it is a power horse. But even if you just took surveys, you can get really creative and get really insightful information out of surveys. And hey, what do we need to adjust? How do we need to follow up? What are people most interested in? And it'll blow your mind with some of the feedback and how it can analyze data.
Doug, I want to use our last like 5-10 minutes here or so. Is, I think you put together a little bit of a framework for prompting that we
Yep.
talked about. I want to show people that because I think it's a really good framework to get people comfortable, because like we've sort of discussed a lot of different ways, to use AI, different scenarios. And I think it's on everybody to start and say, okay, I have this task. I hate it. It takes me a long time. We use the example at EMC when you came and spoke at our conference, where it's like, okay, most event marketers have a lot of, sorry, I'm drawing a blank, receipts, right?
Oh yeah.
They have to do expense reports. So they have all these receipts, they stack up, the pictures are in their phone, they got to write it down, put it in Excel, when really they could just load it up into ChatGPT and it'll do it for them, right? So getting in the rhythm of when to use ChatGPT to speed yourself up. But why don't you give everybody a little bit of a breakdown on like your prompt framework that you put together?
Yep. So as anyone registered, you'll get this in the follow-up, but you will be able to see this right here. It's live. We'll send it out. But you'll get an example to walk you through what makes an effective prompt, how to do things, in your booth. We'll give you example prompts that you can just cut and paste right into there. You just have to change the name of your company. So anything from brainstorming ideas on what to do at your booth, how to do lead scoring and prioritization. So if you collected them, this is a really strong or really strong prompt to cut and paste just to figure out how to prioritize the follow-up. Email sequences. This is really simple here. Very much of what we put in there, you'll see
So
here.
hold on, go back up for a second, Doug, because this makes me think like, one more where you had the prompt right there. Yeah, we collect. Okay, so as an example prompt, it says we collected 300 leads at this trade show name via QR code scans and booth conversations. Please categorize these leads as high, medium, or low priority based on the interest level, buying intent, and follow-up requirements. Present these results in a table. This makes me think smaller company, more control over what you do. Sometimes just using Excel for all of your leads is very simple. You data dump in there. I know when we went to Exhibitor Live and we exhibited, it's not a high volume show. You're not touching and talking to hundreds and thousands of leads, right? It's enough that my sales team was able to control it, put notes, put information, and build out the sheet throughout the day. This is a good example of if you're working with less than 50, 60 leads per se, or meaningful discussions in a day, you could put the information, everything in as you go, and then pile it into ChatGPT, and it would basically do it for you and give the analysis.
And once you have that template, you can just go down to the next step, which is email sequences, LinkedIn outreach, which is huge.
Doug, what is the actual run everybody through live the breakdown of like a prompting framework of like
Yep.
how to write one per se?
So this here is something called the anatomy of the prompt. This was actually architected by one of the founders of OpenAI. This is how the system is designed to receive something. So even
Okay.
if I was speaking, this should be how I give an example. So you have the goal. So, hey, I would like you to help me write an email to 300 people about this. The return format would be, hey, I want you to follow this format. Make sure you have a contextual reference about where we met, what we do as a
Yeah.
company, and the call to action is, hey, book a call. And then the last piece, I might say, hey, don't use any emojis or don't put any common phrases that would seem as if this was AI. And then a context dump is just setting the parameters. And you might say,
Giving as much
hey,
information as you can.
exactly. Hey, we
Yeah.
just participated in Exhibitor Live. We met a whole bunch of people there. We were booth number 1, 2, 3, 4. Blah 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 blah. Just set the
Got
stage.
it. So goal is first. What's your goal of this?
Yep.
Return format is second, basically how you want to see it be returned to you and what you want included. Warnings are like, hey, make sure you avoid this. And then context dump is like, just give me everything you got.
Correct. That's it. If you do that
Interesting.
at the beginning of a chat, everything else you do becomes really easy.
It sets the tone for what they're delivering back.
Yep. Now, if you look at this is how a really good manager would give
Bye,
instructions to
JMac.
somebody. So,
Sorry, Jerry said bye.
see you, Jerry. These would set the stage of how you would generally inform somebody or give good quality instructions to somebody.
Yeah.
Tell them what you
Awesome.
want to do. Tell them what the expectation is. Make sure they know what not to do. And then if there's any additional information, you give it to them. You're just
Awesome.
giving really high quality instruction and your output will match.
I used that the other day for something just on my own because you had sent it to us and I used it just trying to get into the groove of it. So that's great.
How'd it work?
It worked really well. Yeah, it worked really well. I was doing something for our event, actually. I was for EMC. I was doing something for EMC, trying to get kind of some creative juices flowing with some ideas. I have a particular idea and I needed help like adding to it or like, what's the word? Like expelling upon it or
Just like
expounding. I don't know
flushing it out.
what's that word? Expelling, expounding,
Expanding.
what word? Expanding. I don't know.
That's why
I
we
needed
played
some,
golf in college, not
yeah,
English.
I needed something to, right? So I put in as like this is the goal, and then a context dump, and it was really helpful. It gave me a bunch of different things, and I actually was able to take one of those ideas and run with it and
Yeah.
create from it. So it was really helpful. Yeah.
That's honestly, that's probably a really easy place for people to start and figure out how to go back and forth. Do it for
Yeah.
brainstorming. You pick an
Yeah.
event, try to brainstorm with it, talk to it. I'm horrible. Like I talk to it when I'm driving in the car from going
Yeah.
to the airport. There's a button it'll talk back and forth with you. It's a little
Amazing.
creepy, but just
That's awesome.
brainstorming is a great place to start.
Awesome. As we're at the end of it here, we have most everybody here. I do want to say, so we did a pre-show, we did a post-show, all about strategies, tactics, and then of course how to leverage AI. So one of the big things that we're doing is, we're partnering with Doug and Giant Goat, and essentially we're going to build all this into a huge playbook where everything basically, we can give you some of these frameworks, we can give you a lot of this information. So everybody that's came and shown, give us a little bit of time. We're working on it. We're going to put this full thing together and get it out to everybody. And hopefully it's something that, we plan on leveraging and teaching classes with and doing different things with. Because I think a lot of this information has been really, really valuable. What Christine right here? She goes, after the first episode, I asked chat to help me craft a communication plan consisting of email, direct mail, and SM in a Fibonacci sequence prior to my next show. It's much more communication than our company sends for a specific event. So I'll be running this by my planning team to review and craft a better plan for next year's show communication. Hopefully. That's awesome, Christine. That is like the fact that you were able to come here and take what Doug and I are sitting here and shooting the shit about and then go act on it and do something that's meaningful for your company. I would love to know the results of that. Did it work? Did you get more people there? Like, I think that's fantastic. That's a huge piece of what we're trying to do here is kind of give some foundational pieces that you can go work with and apply it in your own way. That's awesome. I love that you did that.
That is awesome.
It's great. All right, everybody, that's a wrap. Thank you for being here. Strong audience all day, Doug. We were 30 plus people for the whole show. You were awesome as always. Thanks for doing this, man. Thanks for being here. Always love talking with you. Always love you bringing your wide array. Next time we'll have you do some dad jokes.
That might be my worst episode, but I'll try.
It was awesome, man. And for everybody, join us next week. We have a really cool show next week, April 2nd. I have the amazing Pablo Gonzalez on. Pablo is on a new adventure, new phase of his life. He's doing some really cool stuff. He's had some amazing success working with Vendaroo and helping them with their events and applying a lot of the stuff that we've been working on together and teaching and discussing via the podcast. So we have this whole concept of from goals to game plan, real event strategy and action. So Pablo and I kind of, talked about how to event strategy execution. He went and executed. He's going to come back and set the stage of like what the show was, what the goals were, how we crafted strategy, what was talked about, went and executed. And he's going to give us some results. We have a really cool show next week. And yeah, we'll see everybody soon. Thanks for doing it. Good seeing everybody. Douglas, thank you as always, my friend.